1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and stop. Welcome everybody. In this video, our focus is going to be exercise 1 from Solo Guitar Playing 1 by Frederick Noad. This is going to be another ongoing series where I will be teaching you all of the basics and going through the entire length of the book, however long that takes. And you can work with me in conjunction with, you can work with me with this method in conjunction with the Sagreras method, because they are slightly different in their approaches. And if you don't have the Sagreras book, but you have been recently introduced to my videos and you have this one, then obviously it's great news for you. If you have the Sagreras, but don't have this book, but would like to see what these other methods are about, then purchase this book and follow along with me, okay? Now, in exercise 1, now we're starting from the beginning. So if you've been watching my Sagreras videos, going back to lesson 1, it's all as if whoever's watching this is brand new to reading music for the guitar. So, so let's continue. A couple of things that I need to obviously mention to you and define for you. First, we have, let's do the staff lines first. There are 5 staff lines, and I'm talking about, obviously, the lines. Really important to understand that the staff lines, remember there are 5 of them, the staff lines do not represent the strings on the guitar. There are 6 strings on the guitar. There are 5 staff lines. And I bring this up because very often when I was teaching this to students that were brand new, they would just immediately assume that those staff lines represent the guitar. So, and they wouldn't say anything to me. They just kind of go, and it would make sense. They kind of, it makes sense to them. And then as we start learning the other strings, they start getting confused because the notes are not on the lines that they think are the strings. So just really important. The staff lines are not the strings. The staff lines are there so that we can visually see when a note, we can visually see very clearly when a note has moved up or when a note has moved down. It's just visual markers. That's what they are. And then of course, they obviously define for us what the names of the notes are. So that's my spiel on staff lines. We have in the beginning a treble clef. A treble clef is that fancy symbol there. That is the clef that we play, that we read from as guitarists. There is also a bass clef, which we don't read on a guitar, but for piano, we read both of them. There's also what's called a C clef, and that C clef actually is movable, and that changes everything. So we're not going to go over that. We play, or we read from a treble clef, and everything on the guitar sounds an octave lower than on a piano. So just keep that in mind. The next thing I want to discuss with you is the time signature. We are in a time signature of 4/4. We don't say 4/4 like as if it were a fraction. It's not a fraction, it's a time signature. So we just say the numbers back to back, 4/4. Now, the top number, I have to go over the time signature. In this method, I have to go over it very, very soon because the methods take slightly different approaches, okay? So here we go, time signature. The top number, the top 4, is a representation of, it is telling you how many counts are in each measure of music. Well, what is a measure? Well, if you look at exercise 1, there are 8 sections that are separated by what we call bar lines. So if you look at the staff lines and all the notes, in between some of the notes, you'll see just a line. Okay, that is called a bar line. And those bar lines are separating the music so that it makes it easier for us to navigate through the music. So we could say measure 5. So we count, okay, now I know where I'm at. So that 4, that top number 4, is telling you that each of those measures that those bar lines create, remember, those bar lines are creating those small little sections of music, or what we call measures. That 4, the top 4, is telling us that each of those measures has 4 counts. Okay, in other words, you have to count to 4 within each of those measures before you go to the next one. And you can see very clearly each of those measures in the book has 1, 2, 3, 4 above it. Next measure, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? The bottom number of the time signature is telling you which note value gets the count. So the note values that the book has established for us is a quarter note, which is 1 count. And you can follow along with the book. It's right there, right above exercise 1. A half note, which is 2 counts. A dotted half note, which is 3 counts. And a whole note, which is 4 counts. Okay? The bottom number 4 in that time signature represents the quarter note. So the quarter note in this exercise is going to receive the count. The quarter note is the 4, I don't want to confuse you. The quarter note receives the count. I'm just going to leave it at that. It'll make sense. Okay? So let's go over these first couple of measures. Well, the first measure. In the first measure, we have 2 quarter notes, which are both 1 count each. So that's 2 counts. And that's going to take up the first 2 counts of the measure. And then after that, we have a half note. A half note is 2 counts. So when we play that half note, it's going to take up the duration of the 3rd count and the 4th count of the measure. So that measure is now complete, and we can move on to the next one. So for example, in measure 1, we would play 1, 2, 3, 4, and stop. I did not play on 4 because that half note is 2 counts. So you have to let it ring for 2 counts. So you play it on the first count, 3, or the 3rd count in the measure, 3, 4, and on 4 you let it ring for that 1 more count, which would total the 2. Okay? So those are the counts. All right? We are all of these notes that we're playing are the first string open. And he also mentions this in a couple of pages back. It might even be the previous page. Everything we're playing is on the first string. Okay? Brief tangent. You can play with rest strokes, which is how I'm playing it, or you can play with free strokes. I'm not going to go over the technical aspects of guitar playing. I have a series of videos that talks about those kinds of things, so you should check those out when you have some time. Okay? Okay, let's go to measure 2. In measure 2, we have a quarter note on the first count, so that would be 1. It's only 1 count. So that note is complete, and now we have to play something on the second count. And on the second count, we have a dotted half note. A dotted half note receives 3 counts. So when we play this E, this is the note E, the first string, when we play this note on the second count, we have to make sure it rings for 3 counts total. 2, 3, 4. Stop. That's 3 counts. The second count, the 3rd count, and the 4th count. The first count being the quarter note that we played right before the dotted half note. And then we continue on through like that. So I'm going to breeze through these a bit quicker now, since it should make sense. On the 3rd measure, we have 4 quarter notes. So we're going to play on each of those counts. And again, these are all E, first string open. All right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty simple. The following measure, we have 2 half notes. A half note receives 2 counts. So the first half note is going to receive the first and the second count of the measure. And the second half note is going to receive the 3rd and the 4th count of the measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right? Following measure, we have a quarter note, which is 1 count. Half note, which is 2 counts. So that's 3 counts total. And then we have 1 more quarter note for that final count on beat 4. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Following measure, we have a half note, which is again 2 counts, and then 2 quarter notes, which are each 1 count. So the the half note that we play first will receive the first 2 counts of the measure. The second 2 notes, the chord notes, will each receive the second 2 counts of the measure. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, whoops. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty basic. This should kind of all make sense. It all just kind of falls into place really easily. But let's finish off the lesson. Let's be thorough here. 2 more measures. We have now 2 quarter notes and then 1 half note. So we have the first 2 chord notes are going to receive 1 count each. So it's 1 and then 2. And then the half note on the 3rd count will receive the last 2 counts. So that will receive the 3rd count and the 4th count. It's just basic math. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and stop. The last measure is the easiest one. Last note, it's a whole note. A whole note receives 4 counts. So when you play it, you have to make sure it rings for 4 counts. You can't stop it and then count to 4. That would be something different, okay? We have to play it, count to 4, stop the note from ringing after counting through all 4 counts. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and stop. Okay, and that is the end of the exercise. So we've learned already in exercise 1, we've learned about the treble clef, the time signature. Top number tells you how many counts are in a measure. Bottom number tells you which note value gets the count. Okay. We learned about the staff lines, how there are 5 and they do not represent the strings. They are simply a visual marker for for us to see very clearly that a note has moved up or down. We learned about bar lines. Okay. We learned about measures, being able to identify the different measures. And we learned about the different note values. A chord note receives 1 count. A half note receives 2 counts. A dotted half note receives 3 counts. And a whole note receives 4 counts. Okay, and last thing, again, I mentioned this already. I was playing rest strokes. You could play free strokes. If you want to learn more about that, check out my video on how to play rest strokes, how to play free strokes. I'm not exactly sure what the title is. Maybe I'll add a link in the description to this video. Okay, but that's it for now. Practice this, and when you're ready, I will see you in exercise 2.